There is a version of you that you have not met yet. A version so composed, so internally fortified, so unmoved by chaos, insult, and collapse, that if you encountered him today, you would not recognize him. You would fear him, and you would hate him a little, because he would be everything you have been pretending to be. They told you strength comes from pushing harder, from wanting more, from fighting back louder. That resilience means bouncing back faster, recovering quicker, hitting the ground running the moment the blow lands. That is the lie they fed you. And it has been quietly ensuring that every storm in your life, every betrayal, every failure, every moment someone tried to dismantle you, found exactly what it was looking for. A man still tethered to outcomes he cannot control, still bleeding for things that were never in his hands, still building his identity on sand. The Stoics understood something 2,000 years ago, that the entire architecture of modern motivation culture exists to suppress. Because if you understood it, truly understood it, you would need nothing they are selling. There are 4 laws, ancient, tested, brutal in their simplicity. The 4th one will dismantle the single belief that has made you breakable your entire life. If you are not ready for this, close the video. Go back to the crowd. But if you want the truth, stay. You were brainwashed to believe that your emotions are the most honest thing about you. Every system that shaped you, school, social media, therapy culture, the self-help industry, built its entire framework around the premise that what you feel is what is real, that your internal state is the truest reflection of your worth, your progress, your position, that when life breaks you open, the breaking is the lesson. Feel it fully, process it publicly, let it move through you. What they never mentioned is that this framework makes you infinitely manageable. A man who is a slave to his emotional reactions is a man who can be controlled by anyone willing to push the right buttons. Your anger, your fear, your need for validation. These are not your humanity. In the wrong hands, they are your leash. Machiavelli understood this without mercy. In The Prince, he wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But beneath that famous line is a deeper truth he was pointing at. The man who governs himself through reason rather than sentiment governs others by default, not through cruelty, through the sheer gravitational weight of a mind that cannot be moved by manipulation. The Stoics built a complete operating system for exactly this. 4 laws, not suggestions, laws. The kind that, once internalized, turn you into something that external chaos can no longer reach. Robert Greene mapped the same architecture in the 48 Laws of Power. Law 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. The sovereign mind operates in silence beneath the surface, while the crowd performs its feelings in public and wonders why nothing changes. I'm going to give you these 4 laws without softening them, but be warned, to apply them fully, you will have to bury a version of yourself that is comfortable being broken, and part of you does not want to do that yet. You do not control the world. You control only your response to it. The average man lives his entire life as a hostage to external events. His mood is determined by what his boss says on Monday morning. His self-worth collapses when a relationship ends. His confidence evaporates the moment a plan fails. He has outsourced the governance of his internal state to a world that was never designed to manage it carefully. This is the foundational Stoic principle. The dichotomy of control. Epictetus, who spent the first half of his life as a slave and the second half as one of the most studied philosophers in the ancient world, built his entire teaching on one distinction: what is up to you and what is not. Your judgments, your intentions, your responses, yours. Everything else, not yours. Weather, other people's behavior, outcomes, timing, luck, not yours. Stop treating them as if they are. The psychological parallel is what modern researchers call the locus of control. Julian Caesar's work in the 1950s demonstrated that individuals with an internal locus of control, those who believe their actions determine outcomes, consistently outperform, recover faster, and tolerate adversity at a significantly higher level than those waiting for external conditions to improve. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire for nearly 2 decades, managing wars, plagues, political betrayal, and the deaths of multiple children, while writing privately in Meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He did not write that from comfort. He wrote it from the center of a collapsing world, in a military tent, at night. And he kept moving. Practical instruction. For the next 7 days, every time you feel your emotional state shift because of something external, a message, a failure, someone else's behavior, stop. Write down one sentence. What is actually in my control right now? Then act only on that. Everything else? Let it exist without your energy feeding it. Because once you have killed the habit of fighting what you cannot control, the second law lands differently, and it is colder. Desire is the architect of your suffering.
The average man does not understand why he is in constant low-grade pain. He has enough, sometimes more than enough, and still there is a persistent dissatisfaction underneath everything. A hunger that reorganizes itself the moment it is fed. He gets what he wanted, and the wanting simply relocates. He is not broken. He is just running the default program. The Stoics called it appetitus, unregulated desire. Seneca wrote about it with surgical clarity. It is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the man who hankers after more. The prison is not circumstance. The prison is craving. And modern society is a machine specifically engineered to keep that craving alive, rotating, and never satisfied. The psychological framework here is what researchers call the hedonic treadmill, the documented human tendency to return to a baseline level of happiness regardless of what we gain or lose. Brickman and Campbell's landmark studies showed that lottery winners and accident victims reported nearly identical happiness levels 1 year after their life-changing events. The mind adapts. The wanting resets. You're always on the treadmill unless you make a deliberate choice to step off it. The Spartans understood this not as philosophy, but as policy. Spartan culture deliberately stripped material comfort, social softness, and indulgence from every citizen from birth, not as punishment, as architecture. A man trained to need nothing cannot be controlled through the promise of something. He becomes unconquerable because there is nothing to offer him and nothing to take away. Practical instruction. Identify one thing you are currently pursuing that, if you are honest, you want primarily because someone else has it or because you believe it will make others see you differently, not because it genuinely aligns with who you are building. Sit with the discomfort of that honesty. Then decide, is this a direction or is this a leash?
What is the point of building an empire if the emperor is enslaved to the wanting of it? And if that question unsettles you, the third law will finish the surgery. Comment below. I am unbreakable. You are still here. Good. The fragile ones already left. Every setback is data, nothing more. 99% of people experience failure as identity. When a business collapses, they are a failure. When a relationship ends, they are unlovable. When a plan disintegrates, they are evidence of their own inadequacy. They have fused the event to the self, and that fusion is the thing that breaks them, not the event itself.
The Stoic practice of amor fati, love of fate, is not passive acceptance. It is active reframing at a surgical level. It does not ask you to pretend the blow did not land. It asks you to look at the blow and ask, what does this make possible that was not possible before? What does this destroy that needed to be destroyed? What information is this delivering that comfort would never have given you? Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset, spanning decades at Stanford, demonstrated empirically that individuals who frame setbacks as information rather than verdict recover faster, learn more efficiently, and ultimately outperform fixed mindset counterparts at every measurable level. The mind that treats failure as data is a mind that cannot be permanently damaged by it. Julius Caesar embodied this with ruthless consistency. Captured by pirates as a young man, held for ransom, humiliated, he used the time in captivity to study his captors, memorize their operations, and promise them quietly that he would return and crucify them. He was not performing confidence, he was processing information. The moment he was released, he raised a fleet, hunted them down, and did exactly what he said. The setback had been a laboratory. Nothing was wasted. Practical instruction. Take the last significant failure in your life, the one you still carry. Write it down. Then underneath it, write 3 things that failure made available to you that success in that moment would have prevented. Force the reframe, not because it erases the pain, but because it converts the energy from wound to weapon. Because the 4th law is the one that makes the previous 3 permanent, and it is the one they will never teach you. Your identity must be built on what you do, not on what happens to you. This is the blade. This is the thing that, once understood, makes you unbreakable in a way that is almost unfair. The average man's identity is a house built on the approval of others, the continuation of his circumstances, and the narrative that things are generally going in the right direction. Remove any one of those pillars, and the structure shakes. Remove all 3, and it collapses completely. This is why the same people can be devastated by the same types of events repeatedly across a lifetime. The foundation never changed. They rebuilt on sand every time. The Stoics called the alternative the unshakable core, the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty, the part of you that observes, decides, and acts regardless of what the world does. It cannot be touched by insult, loss, betrayal, or collapse because it does not derive its existence from any of those things. It exists because you choose to govern it every single day. Through deliberate action, deliberate thought, deliberate discipline. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived 4 Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz and Dachau, documented in Man's Search for Meaning that the single factor separating those who psychologically survived the camps from those who did not, was the ability to find meaning, to maintain an internal narrative that was not surrendered to the captors. They took everything. And he found that there was one thing that could not be taken: the freedom to choose one's response. That is the hegemonicon made flesh under the most extreme conditions in modern history. Robert Greene identified the same principle in the 33 Strategies of War. The first strategy: declare war on your enemies, meaning declare war on the internal enemies first. The chaos, the reactivity, the identity built on sand. A general who has not conquered himself cannot hold a battlefield. Practical instruction. Write down the 3 words you would use to describe who you are at your core. Not your job title, not your relationship status, not your achievements. 3 words that would still be true if every external thing you have were removed tomorrow. If you cannot find 3 words that hold without external scaffolding, that is your answer. That is the work. The man who knows exactly who he is under pressure cannot be remade by pressure. He is the pressure. There is something honest that needs to be said before this ends. This path is not warm. When you begin practicing these 4 laws, when you stop bleeding for things outside your control, when you reduce the craving, when you treat failure as data, when you build identity from the inside out, the people around you will feel it. Some of them will not like it, because a man who no longer needs their validation, no longer reacts to their provocations, no longer collapses in ways they can predict, is a man who has removed himself from a game many of them are running without knowing it. The wolf does not explain himself to the flock. He does not ask for approval. He does not perform his pain at the tree line for the sheep to feel better about their enclosure. He moves. He watches. He is present in a way that costs him something every single day. And there are nights on that ridge when the warmth of the crowd below looks like something real. It is not. Machiavelli wrote The Prince while stripped of everything he had built. Tortured, exiled, politically erased. The man who had devoted his life to the study and practice of power, reduced to nothing. And in that nothing, in that cold silence that most men would not survive, he wrote the document that changed how the world thinks about power forever. Not from comfort, not from safety, from the void. The Stoics were not philosophers of ease. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire in a state of near constant war. Epictetus was born a slave. Seneca was ordered by Nero to open his own veins. These were not men sitting in warm rooms writing about inner peace. These were men building unbreakable architecture under conditions designed to break them. This freedom is cold. There is no applause for the reaction you did not have. No reward for the desire you did not chase. No recognition for the failure you converted quietly into fuel. You do it in silence. You build in darkness. And one day, not today, maybe not this year, the fortress you built where no one could see it becomes visible. And what stands there will not look like anything they expected. That is the only freedom that cannot be taken from you. You made it to the end. Most do not. Most people want the idea of being unbreakable. They want it the way they want the idea of training at 5 in the morning, as a concept, as an identity marker, as something to say they believe in. The actual work of it, the cold, unglamorous, daily practice of governing the mind when everything in you wants to react, to crumble, to reach, that they abandon the moment it costs something real. You are still here. That means something. It is a small signal, but it is a real one. Subscribe to this channel, not because I asked you to. Subscribe because you recognize that what is being built here is not content, it is architecture. A framework for becoming something the average man was never willing to be. Not because he lacked the capacity, but because no one ever handed him the blueprint without softening it first. There is more I cannot say in an open video. The algorithm does not reward what sits behind that wall. What I cannot say publicly goes further than anything covered here. That space is for the ones who are finished being managed by a world that profits from their instability. For now, take the 4 laws. Apply them without apology. Build where they cannot see you, and do not let them see you break.